Howdy and welcome to episode 6 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen and today is Friday, August 5th. I usually record these episodes every other Thursday, so I'm technically a day late, but I do have a good reason. Basically on Monday, our air conditioner went out. And it turned out to be a big issue, so big that we needed to replace our air conditioner system. So that did not happen until yesterday afternoon. So from Monday till yesterday evening even, because it took the house a while to cool down, when here in Texas, the outside temperature was over 100 degrees, inside our house it was close to 90. So needless to say, I really did not feel like knitting or spinning or touching wool or talking on the camera or anything. So that is why I am a little late with the podcast. And most of the stuff I talk about is actually stuff that happened kind of before Monday, since I haven't really done much knitting or spinning since then. But we will go ahead and get started because there is a lot of stuff to talk about. So today's t-shirt is one that I actually got very recently, so it's probably still available. I will double check that and post a link in the show notes. So this is another combo shirt, so that merges more than one thing. So here is a look at the shirt. So it says, "Sorry, Arthur, but the Holy Grail is in another castle." And if you see the pictures of the figures, this is from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And then it's in kind of Super Mario Brothers. So the idea of, sorry Mario, the princess is in another castle, taking that to the Arthur thing. I love this shirt, because it's King Arthur. I think actually that Monty Python and the Holy Grail is one of the better Arthurian movies out there. There have been a lot of Arthurian movies and they really haven't been very good. So the Monty Python one is actually funny and in a lot of ways really accurate. Anyway, and then with Mario Brothers, I grew up with the original Nintendo, so the NES. Not the Super NES, the original Nintendo. So playing Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3. I remember, when 2 came out, it was really exciting. And then the movie was called The Wizard. It revolved around a video game championship, and the final level was Super Mario 3. And I was like, wow, Super Mario 3! I can't wait to play this. And so my sister and I spent many, many hours playing various Nintendo games, but mostly the Mario games. So I really like this shirt, being able to kind of combine those things. So I have many more things to talk about, so I think I'm gonna kind of leave the shirt section to that. So fun shirt. If you haven't seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, go see it. It's very funny, very humorous, and I hope that you enjoy it. So I think you'll notice once again, just like last week, I'm not actually wearing a shawl, and that's because the shawl I want to talk about is one I no longer own. I really didn't want to do that back to back, have 2 episodes where I didn't wear a shawl, but in all honesty, even though the house is cooled down now, I'm still not really eager to throw on something that is going to make me warm. So apologies for not wearing a shawl again in this episode. I will wear one next time. So this one I want to talk about is the Ast Light Shawl by Gudrun Johnston. And I actually knit this back in 2009. It looks like August to September 2009. So started August 10th. So today's August 5th, almost 7 years ago. Wow. that I knit this shawl. So this is one that I have several kind of stories that go with this. First of all, the reason I no longer have it is because, like last week, it is one that I sold. I'm not as upset that I sold it. I do think that it was a very nice shawl, but it's not one that I necessarily regret selling. I think part of that is because it actually went to a nun, and so I imagine that she's using it as like a prayer shawl. So it's kind of a nice way of thinking about what's happening with the shawl. Anyway, the stories that go with this shawl Basically, this is the shawl that I was in the middle of working on when I discovered that I had been doing yarn overs wrong. So this was 2009. I started knitting in 2005. So for 4 years, I had been doing yarn overs incorrectly. Basically, instead of just like if between two knit stitches, just moving it to the front and then knitting and then having the yarn pass over, I was wrapping the yarn, but I was wrapping it in the opposite direction. I have no idea why. And so I was basically mounting that yarn over incorrectly on my needle, so that way when I came and knit it, I was twisting the stitch. So I was technically knitting it through the back leg instead of the front. Or I guess the front leg was positioned. Anyway, I was twisting the stitch and closing up the yarn over. I always wondered why my yarn overs weren't as big as other people's yarn overs. And I thought, well, I am a tight knitter. I guess that just comes with the territory. Well, it turns out I was doing the yarn overs incorrectly. Once I got that figured out, now my yarn overs, even though I am a tight knitter and they are a little smaller than other people's, not quite as small as they used to be. But I discovered that in the middle of this shawl. And so I didn't want to suddenly change the way I had been doing yarn overs in this shawl. I was over the halfway point, so I didn't want to rip it out and start over from the beginning. So I remember that I had to keep doing yarn overs incorrectly, knowing now that they were incorrect as I finished this shawl, so that way it would stay consistent from the beginning to the end. And then as soon as that was over, I was like, oh, I'm never going to do yarn overs incorrectly again. So the second half of that shawl was definitely an adventure. The other thing about this shawl is that the yarn that I used was wool Misa. So this was back, 2009, in kind of the height of the frenzy for this yarn, where it was extremely difficult to get because it was coming from Germany. Any of the updates that were happening usually were happening at crazy hours for those of us in the United States. So people were staying up or waking up, in the middle of the night to go to an update and try to get the yarn. You could resell it for at least what you paid for it, sometimes even more, just because it was so hard to get and so sought after. So I remember that I kept trying to get yarn in a D-stash. I wasn't quite, as much in the frenzy that I wanted to wake up at 3 a.m. or whatever time to try to get it on that update. So I was trying to get it from D-stashes, and I finally got this, it was a green color, probably almost a chartreuse type of green, which is not my color at all. I really, for me personally, I don't like that color. But that was finally the skein that I was able to snag. And so my idea was that then I will have this skein, and maybe I can find someone who does like this color and I can trade it for a color that I actually like. And that is what ended up happening. I'm very happy to say that actually worked, and I was able to trade it for a really pretty blue that was much more to my liking, and whoever got the green, I think she was very happy with that. So it ended up great, and this is the shawl that I knit out of that. So technically it was, I guess, my second skein of wool Misa, but I didn't ever, use that first skein. I used it as a means of trading to get the pretty blue skein. But gosh, I don't know if you guys were knitting back then, or if you were involved in that frenzy for the yarn, but it's definitely it was a crazy, crazy time. And so this shawl brings back a lot of those memories. And again, I do kind of wish that I still had it, but I think that hopefully it is still with the nun and still being used as a prayer shawl. I think that's a really nice journey for it to have gone on. This week's question from Karen, questions for Karen, comes from Tim Stevens 4. So Tim asks, I'm kind of curious about how you store your stash, both fiber and yarn. Right now, my yarn stash is kind of annoying to go through, and I sometimes end up buying new yarn for projects instead of using my stash. My fiber stash is even worse. I'm actually a little afraid that I'm storing it wrong and might be felting the fiber. So thanks, Tim, for your question. Actually, right now I am not happy with my fiber and yarn storage options. Fortunately, I saw your question you posted a little while back, and I recorded some segments with my current setup, as well as at least a couple of new arrangements that I did, because I actually have previously gone, since your question, taken a look at my storage. Unfortunately, I recorded that before the whole air conditioning debacle, so I will be putting those segments in here. But basically, just some kind of overall things. First off, I have all of my yarn and fiber listed on Ravelry. So that way it does take some time to get the list up, but if you don't have that already, take some time to do that. Because that way, whenever I see a pattern that I want to knit, I can sort my stash by weight of yarn, by color, by fiber content, whatever I want to sort it by. And it at least gives me a really good idea of what I have available in my stash. So that is definitely a method of organization that I highly recommend to help you kind of find what you have in your stash. There's even a location field, so if you have different boxes, you can number your boxes and actually put in the location field on Ravelry which box or which location that yarn or fiber is in. So if you haven't already done that, definitely start there. So the physical storing of stash. Right now, like I said, I've got several setups. Not really fully happy with it because even though I do I need to update the location field on Ravelry, it's still sometimes hard to find some things. Since this question, I've now reorganized at least a little bit. But as far as storing it wrong, that's going to, I don't really necessarily think there is, well, I guess there are some wrong ways to store it. But I don't think under normal-ish storage conditions you need to worry too much about felting your fiber, because felting happens with agitation and with heat. So getting hot water and agitating the fiber, that is the perfect combination for felting. And yes, there are some yarns and fibers that felt a little more easily than others. And so sometimes you do need to be careful. I would say that if you have all your fiber kind of crammed together in one box and you do a lot of digging through it, and none of it is in plastic bags or anything, it's all loose, and you're digging through it and trying to find what you're looking for, that probably is not a good situation. So you probably do want a different setup if you've really crammed everything together and you just kind of paw through the fiber. And I will admit I have sometimes done that. So I know of what I speak. Don't do that anymore. I have, at least for my fiber stash, most of it, well, no, looking at it, it's not true. Maybe half of it is in a plastic bag, so a baggie or a bag that it actually comes in, just to kind of keep the fiber a little neater, since it is loose, looser usually types of fiber. That helps it. So even if you do all store it in one box, if you have each braid of fiber or something separated in a plastic bag, that can definitely help kind of keep it a lot neater. So lots and lots of ways to store things. Some of it's going to depend on whether or not you are concerned about pests, about moths or carpet beetles or any of those types of things. I know some people have those issues and have to take precautions with their stash. So that's something also to consider, kind of your environment. If you're in a very humid environment, you want to make sure that you're not doing something like letting your stash get exposed to the humidity and then storing it in a airtight Ziploc bag where you squish all the air out and then you put it in a plastic box that's also airtight and don't give it room to breathe. Because even though your yarn or fiber doesn't feel wet, wool, especially wool, will draw in the moisture, and then if you put it in a condition where it's just kind of locked down airtight, you might end up with some yarn that you're not very happy with. So always, take your environmental, considerations into your plans. So all that being said, I do have a little bit of advice as far as some of the ways that I'm storing my stash, both things that I do like, things that I don't like. And then in my next newsletter, I actually plan on sharing some of the tips that you guys already shared in a survey that I had already posted for my newsletter, as well as some other ideas and thoughts that I have for storage. So both watch the next section, or kind of sections of videos for some ideas, and then also pay attention to the next newsletter. Okay, so there are a few things in my yarn closet that I really like, and a few things that I definitely want to change. One thing that I really like is that I've taken one of those shoe organizers that you hang on the back of a door, and I have a lot of sock yarn in this, a lot of self-striping sock yarn and some other things. So this is kind of nice. Mostly it fits one skein per shoe slot, but as you can see there, I have 2 skeins, but that doesn't always fit quite nicely. But anyway, that's kind of a nice way of partially displaying some of the yarn and storing it. In kind of a similar way, I have this hanging sweater thing right here, and I have some of my yarn stash in that. One thing that I would highly recommend that I definitely need to change is notice that there is no back to this sweater stacker. And that means when I'm trying to pull one of the yarns out of the bottom here, it's highly likely that the yarns on top of it fall to the back and they fall down to the bottom of my closet. So that's not really the greatest setup. I don't really like that. So I definitely like this idea, but want to get new sweater storage hanging things, whatever they're called, that have backs. I did have 2 of these side by side. The unfortunate thing is I actually used to have them stacked much fuller than this, so each of the slots was absolutely full of yarn. And if you notice, they are connected just by this little tie up here. And the second one that I had ripped loose. Apparently the yarn was way too heavy for it. So that is something else to kind of watch out for and make sure that you are not getting too heavy in your yarn. The other thing that I have, and these labels are completely wrong now, but I have these plastic containers in the closet, and these are drawers, and so they do pull out. Definitely if you have something that's kind of stuck in the closet that you don't want to have to pull in and out all the time, it's nice to have something that's a drawer. So I do like that, but right now I really have no idea what is placed where. Like I said, the labels are completely wrong on these containers, so I definitely need to go through there and redo my organization. And then the lighting is going to be horrible here because this is part of the closet that doesn't get much light, but I do have this kind of shelving unit here where I have random stuff. And in the bottom, I have these bins, and that's where my sweater quantities of yarn are, at least some of my sweater quantities. So I have them in Ziploc bags to kind of keep them together, so I can grab one quickly if I want to, and also kind of makes for easy storage down there. So that's one of the ways that I've been storing my yarn. This is along one side of the wall, kind of under the window of my craft room slash guest room. And here I have a lot of these containers, and this is where I store, currently where I'm storing some undyed yarn, so the yarn that I need to dye, but also is where I am currently storing my fiber. So I'm gonna move forward, hope that the lighting is still okay. And if I open up this drawer, this is where half of my fiber stash resides. So I mostly have each braid in a plastic bag, so that way it kind of keeps them separate and they're not rubbing up against each other. But there are some definitely toward the bottom. I can see one right here that's not in a plastic bag. So I really don't have them all completely organized. And to be honest, I'm not really happy with this setup because in order to get to something on the bottom, I have to take everything out of the top. And it usually means if I'm trying to find something to spin, if something in the top grabs my attention, I don't even dig down to the bottom. So usually what ends up at the top is something that's new. So I spin stuff that has been in my stash for not very long versus the stuff that's been in there for years that I do really want to spin, but I keep forgetting about. So this arrangement really isn't working and I need to do something else. So when that hanging shelf in my closet fell, I really didn't have any place to put the yarn. And so I actually grabbed this red container that I had and I just, lighting is awful here. Let's take it over to the middle of the room. I just grabbed this red container that I had and shoved yarn into it. And I really don't like this setup because it's really deep and it's hard to see the red container. I can't really get a good view of what's inside. So this is yarn that I actually, if it weren't for my Ravelry page, I would kind of forget that I have. So I really need to come up with a better way of storing, especially this kind of set of yarns. So this is a display cabinet that I have mounted to my wall. It was actually one of the graduation presents for graduating from graduate school. Really love this cabinet. And basically this is where I store a lot of my leftover skeins as well as things that start out in cake form. Because it's easier, like these gradients up here, because it's easier to store them in here than to try to store them in any of the other places. So most of these are leftovers. Some of them are just because of the way that the yarn came, work better in this cabinet. And I have a few empty places that I need to fill. I recently took a lot of my leftovers and brought them to my knitting group and basically let people just pick through them and take whatever they want. And I got rid of a lot of leftovers that way. So this is a display space that I actually need to work on a little bit, make it look really pretty because there's some good stuff in here, but there are definitely some holes that need to be filled. The final place that I'm currently storing yarn is actually in our master bedroom. So this is a stack of containers along one wall. And I actually have my Round Table Yarns inventory is what is stored here right now. But I wanted to show you guys this because if you are thinking about plastic boxes, I really like these plastic boxes for two reasons. One, they're see-through, so you can easily see the yarn that is in the box. And two, they're not very tall, so not very deep. And that means that it's really easy to see what's in the box. I can see it right here just from the side view. And then when I open a box, so let's see, don't want to move the camera too much and possibly make you sick, but if I open a box, you can see it only gets up to 3 layers deep. So over here I've got, let me get at an angle. So 1, 2, 3 layers deep. And especially if I kind of push all the yarn up this way, I can really easily just kind of move these individual layers, get to the bottom, nothing is too buried, and so I can find what I'm looking for pretty quickly. So I think what I need to do is maybe get some more of these types of containers for my own personal stash and kind of see what I can do as far as where I store these containers. I'm not really sure. But I do like, as far as the ease of being able to see the stash and get to it easily without having to dig around in the boxes, I definitely recommend these shallower, potentially under the bed boxes, depending on how tall your bed is. So I do like these boxes for storage. I've done a little bit of updating and I wanted to show off what I did with this portion. I used to have yarn in here and I decided actually this might be a really good way of storing my fiber. And so that's what I've done. So what I did is some of the fiber is in plastic bags and some of it is not. But these are basically braids that are coiled into a circle and I put them side by side with a couple of things on top because I just didn't have quite enough space, but mostly side by side. So that way it's pretty easy to reach in and get something and not have to worry about knocking one of the other braids kind of toward the back. So I really like this. I also think it'll help me kind of see my fiber a lot more and hopefully get more excited about spinning. Not that I'm not excited about spinning, but sometimes it is out of sight, out of mind. So since I go in this closet a lot, having the fiber be front and center I think will be really beneficial. So I am still storing yarn here, but now I have sorted everything and put labels on it. So I actually have it sorted by weight. And then I have a box that I know for sure is stuff I want to destash. And I also still have fingering weight yarn there. And I have a lot of fingering weight yarn. But that I think are the yarns that I really want to kind of keep front and center so I remember to use them more quickly. And then I'm going to swing the camera around back to this red box, and in here now what I have is all of my yarn that is fiber specific. So wool that is, for example, this one is 100% Columbia wool. This one is 100% Border Leicester. So these are my wools that are breed specific. So that's how they're sorted, because a lot of these are wools that I kind of want to experiment with to see what different breeds are like. So I thought keeping them together would be a good idea. What I'm knitting really in the last few days has not been much at all. Like I said, just way too hot to want to even touch any wool. But before that I did get a good chunk of knitting done on my charlatan shawl. So I will show you that. And again, the stitches are kind of bunched up on the needles, so it's hard to really be able to see the shape of this. But basically, I am working on the purple part, and I am 2 rows away from getting to the section where you have the option to either do a lace edge, so there's the color, or you can continue on with the solid edge. And then you finish the shawl by going back to this first color and doing an edging with that color to kind of tie it together. I really like that. I've made some mistakes. It seems so easy, although the construction is really cool. And I've messed it up just a little bit. So what you do is basically, as you're knitting this first part, you create by, at the beginning of each row, a little loop. I don't know if you can see that. So you can see the little lines there that are creating these loops. And then as you're knitting back and forth on this section, you're picking up a loop. Apparently, as I was going, I wasn't always super duper careful to pick up the very next loop, and I noticed that I skipped a few here and there. Obviously, this, especially if you do the lace section, it has a specific count. You know, you're supposed to reach a certain number of these, have a certain number of these, and by skipping them, that means I don't have enough for the lace portion. So what I'm going to do is when I finish the next 2 rows, I'm going to count how many loops I have left and count how many rows are needed for the lace portion and see how off I am. And if I'm off by a lot, then I'm going to skip the lace part and just do the solid section. Or I might try to see if I can do like half the lace or something kind of crazy. I don't know. I'll see if I can make some adjustments. So we'll see next time what I've decided to do to this. But the really sticky point is that, so there's 2 sides that you're picking up these stitches on. So this one and this one. Last time I counted the loops, I did not have the same number left on each side. That I think is going to be the real issue. In fact, I can almost see it. Yeah, I can actually see it just holding this up like this, trying to even out the purple section. You can tell this side is a little bit longer, so I'm not even on my number of loops. So I think I really do need to just suck it up and say I can't do the lace section. I'm gonna have to continue on in the solid, which is fine. It's still a very nice shawl, and I like it, and I'm glad that Jenny designed it so you could continue on for the solid section. but I'm gonna have to probably purposefully skip a couple of loops, or possibly I'm gonna have to kind of play with it and see which looks better. Either skip a couple of loops at the end to even things out, or possibly do 2 rows in a loop or something like that. Since I have already skipped rows previously to get myself to this point, that'll probably be what I end up doing, just to kind of keep that error consistent. Well, anyway, I mean, I know obviously my other option is to rip it out and start over. The good news is that I wouldn't have to start over with that first section. I would just have to start over with the purple section. But I'm going to be completely honest. That's probably what I should do, but I know myself. And I know if I do that, this project is going to get put aside, and I am not going to come back to it for a while, because I will be so upset for having done that much work and then have to rip it out. So I know me. I'm just going to keep moving forward with it. Still end up with a shawl that I like, just not quite what I had been planning. But that's okay. It'll still be a really nice shawl. So that's kind of the thing that has gotten the most attention from the time that I have been knitting the past 2 weeks. I did actually on Wednesday night, which was the really, really hot night in our house, we went and stayed with my mom. So when we stayed with my mom, I did bring this project with me, the checkerwork hat, and I got a little bit more done on it. So probably at this point about halfway through the body before I start the decreases. So I hopefully will get some more done on that, but a little bit done. And then really the other project that I've been working on, and I will talk a little bit more about this, is a sample sock for a new self-striping colorway that I'm working on for Round Table Yarns. So I will briefly show you the sock, and then I will talk more about the actual color in the Round Table Yarns update section. So I have finished up to the start of the heel for the sock. So you can see, technically there's 6 stripes, so alternating every other stripe black, and then purple, pink, and blue. So I'm getting to the point where I'm just ready to turn the heel. So that's took a chunk of time. I guess technically last week. I didn't knit on it any this week. So those are the things that I've been knitting since I last talked to you guys. So last time I recorded, the Saturday right after that was a trunk show at my local yarn shop, which is the Knitting Fairy in Grand Prairie. There was a trunk show for another designer. Her name is Lori Beardsley. She designs under the name Lori B Knitting. So she had all of her samples set up, and then you could get the patterns at the trunk show, and it was really nice to see the samples. And then she also very often collaborates with an indie dyer, Dye to Spin, with the number 2, and I will link to all of this in the show notes. So Ashley from Dye to Spin, Lori and Ashley often collaborate, yarn and patterns. So both of them were there for the trunk show, and so I decided that I wanted to go and get to see all of the designs and the yarn in person. So I was really, it was a really nice display. I will pop a picture up here so you can see Lori standing in front of her many wonderful designs. And then I also got a picture of Ashley in front of her yarn. So hopefully those have popped up. And basically there was one pattern that I knew that I was going to buy, and I would have just bought it on Ravelry, but I went ahead and bought it at the trunk show because that also helped support the yarn shop. And that pattern is called the Exploding TARDIS. So I'm going to hold up a picture here. Hopefully the glare is not too horrible. There we go. So there's a picture of the Exploding TARDIS. Isn't that cool? So I had made the assumption that it was constructed in two sections, which I'm really not sure why, because I can see that those lines match up perfectly. So, you know, in my head when I first saw this shawl, I thought it was constructed in a different way from what it actually was constructed. So it was really nice to be able to talk to Lori and to find out how it was constructed, which is really, really neat, uses short rows. So that was a lot of fun to kind of get to talk shop, I guess, a little bit. So had a good time there. I also, although Ashley had a bunch of yarn, she also dyes fiber. And so I actually, instead of buying yarn, I bought some fiber. So first of all, there is dye to spin. And then this is the fiber I got. So it is browns and light blues and some almost white areas. This is a blend of Polworth and silk. I really love having a little bit of silk in the fiber that I spin, and the colorway is called Catnap, and it's just a really nice soft color that I really liked. Plus I liked the Polworth and silk blend, so I picked that up too. So I got a pattern and got the fiber. So I went to the trunk show, like I said, that Saturday, and then the following Saturday, so just this past Saturday, I went to another event. So in a couple of weeks, we have our DFW yarn crawl, which is a really, really fun event. There are so many yarn shops that participate. It's quite the drive to get to all of them because it covers a really wide area. But really, really great shops. I'm really looking forward to traveling to as many as I can. And then I'll also have a trunk show myself set up at the Knitting Fairy. But anyway, so in preparing for the yarn crawl, there was an event called Stitch Your Stash. So it started, I think it was June 1st. I know it ended July 31st. And the idea is to use stash that you already had, so stuff that, you know, came into your stash before the start of this event, and knit as much of that as possible. And I know there are prizes and whatnot. The only thing that I entered in the event was the Charlotte Shawl, and I didn't finish it, but I did, you know, measure the yardage that I did knit on that through the course of the event. Anyway, so July 30th, which was a Saturday, I think it was July 30th, there was a party to celebrate the end of Stitch Your Stash. So it was hosted by the Buffalo Wool Company, and in a park that was about an hour's drive for me, but I went ahead and drove up there. Unfortunately, my husband also had an event that day, and his event was down toward Austin, and so it made a little more sense for me to have our 4-year-old. So that means I got to bring Luke to the Stitch Your Stash party, which would have been okay, except for one big thing. It was at a park, in a pavilion in the park, and just a little ways from where we were sitting, there was a playground. So the playground was close enough for Luke to see it, but far enough away where I couldn't stay in the pavilion and then let him go off to the playground and play. I mean, if he had been, 9 or 10, a little bit older, that would have been one thing, but he's 4, almost 5, and he doesn't always, he's a bit impulsive, I guess I'll say that. So I definitely didn't trust to have him go off to the playground where I couldn't see him from where I was sitting. So the whole time that I was there, he just wanted to go to the playground. So I did take him to the playground once and, let him play for a while, and then made him come back to the pavilion. And then he stayed for a little while, and then he actually started to try to go to the playground by himself. So we went to the playground again. And then after that, it was pretty hot, and I thought, you know what, I didn't really drive an hour to take my son to the playground. I really wanted to be at this event, and so we left a little early. But I did get to participate at least a little bit. I actually sat with Lori, whom I talked to about just in the last segment with the trunk show. So I got to sit with Lori and some other people, and we got to eat hot dogs with buffalo. I put buffalo chili on mine, so I had a chili dog. And then there were some events that, some contests that were going on. Since I had Luke, I didn't participate in the contests. But the first one, everyone got into partners and had a set of knitting needles, and they were supposed to, as partners, knit a swatch. So I think it was cast on 20 stitches and then knit, and see how many rows they could get done. The thing is, 2 people, each person could only use one hand. So they had to try to coordinate, each of them using one hand. So 2 hands together, 2 people, and trying to knit. So I actually went around and took several pictures of that. So I might pop up a few of those pictures here. So people that are going around and trying to team knit. So that was a lot of fun watching the people do that. And I think the winning, I don't remember exactly how much time was given, but I think the winning team got 5 rows plus 1 stitch. I think that was the count. So that was fun to watch. And then the next event was just speed knitting. So, on your own, knit, stockinette, swatch, again, 20 stitches wide, and just however many rows you can get done. And that was the point where the second time Luke wanted to go to the playground. So in the middle of that event was when I went to the playground. So I have no idea, who won that or how many rows that person got through. And when I came back, everyone that was participating had on a blindfold. And so it looked like it was, basically how fast you can knit, how much you can knit while blindfolded. Which especially if it's just, stockinette or garter, I can do that while I'm reading. So I could have done that event. But unfortunately they were in the middle of it, and obviously I didn't want to put on a blindfold and then have my 4-year-old run off somewhere. So I didn't get to participate in that, and because that was the event that was happening when it was time for us to leave, I unfortunately didn't get to say goodbye to anyone because they were blindfolded. So I'm glad that I went, but unfortunately it was a little bit of a bust. Sometimes I love my son to death, but sometimes it's nice to be able to go to things without him. And that was not one of those things. In fact, if you've heard background noise in this episode, that is my son in his playroom playing. A lot of times I wait until he goes down for his nap to start recording these, but I just wanted to sit down and record. So he's in there playing. Background noise, I apologize for. That is all him. So anyway, I've actually had a fairly eventful 2 weeks. Both in the knitting world and then obviously with the whole air conditioning thing. But anyway, so that's what I've been doing. So the rest of this episode is going to be about the Roundtable Yarns and Karen Dawn Designs updates. So if you are interested in that information, then go ahead and continue watching. If you are not interested, then that's mostly what I'm going to talk about. There's one other thing that I'm going to talk about at the very, very end. But that's mostly what I'm going to talk about from here on out, so you won't miss anything if you either end here or skip ahead to the very, very ending section. And the very, very ending section is I'm going to tell the story of the whole air conditioning debacle, because there was a lot that happened to it. And originally I had recorded this for the opening, and it turned out to be pretty long, and so I decided to, instead of using it as the opening, I decided to put it at the end, so that way if you're not interested in hearing my air conditioning story, then you don't have to sit through that. So I'm going to do the updates, and then the very last section will be the air conditioning story. So if you want to skip the updates, you can skip that, and then you can go to the title card that mentions the air conditioning story. And if you're not interested in either one of those things, then you can end the episode now. And if that is the case, thank you so much for watching. And I plan to be back in 2 weeks, but on my regular Thursday day. Hopefully nothing else happens for that to not work out. So if you want to hear updates and or the air conditioning story, then keep watching. So So for my designs, I finally sat down and wrote up the instructions for the cowl pattern. I do need to go back and actually take the final measurements of the cowl and enter those types of things. So just a couple of little extra details there, and I will probably start looking for test knitters very soon. I also actually started to do work on my next book idea, which I have had for quite a while, but just hadn't sat down to work. So I actually made a plan. This is the stuff that I need to do to plan out the book. And I'm looking across the room because I actually have this list on a big piece of paper on my wall, so I can see it and remind myself what I need to do. So I've actually got a few things on that list crossed off, and still quite a few more things that are still on the list, but I am actually making progress on the book. It probably won't, I know it won't come out until next year, but maybe I'll have some samples and things I can potentially tease in the upcoming months. So I am actually making progress on that. And then my test knitters have finished the shawl that I designed in collaboration with the indie dyer Anna from Art by Anna. We are going to start that knit along on September 1st, or the knit along itself starts on September 15th, but the pattern will be released on September 1st so that you can have plenty of time to look over the pattern, do some swatching, because I know that's something you should do. And get ready to start the knit along. So my test knitters just finished with that, and I finalized the pattern and I sent it off to the graphic designer yesterday. So that is all on time, on schedule, and should be ready to go September 1st pattern release, September 15th knit along. So that's it for designing right now. So I've got a lot of stuff going with Roundtable Yarns. I have started doing mini skeins. This is something I've thought about for quite a while, but I finally decided to go ahead and give it a try. So in my newsletter, I had everyone, or anyone who wanted, give me their feedback on mini skeins. I think I mentioned this in the last episode. So would you prefer 20 grams or 25 grams, packaged with the self-striping sock yarn or packaged individually? And based upon those answers, that helped me make my decision. So the mini skeins are officially going to be 25 grams, and they will be packaged separately. I may, in the online shop, have a listing for a mini skein and a self-striping skein packaged together, but especially as shows and also just individually, the mini skeins will be offered by themselves. So that way, if you're not interested in using them for the heels and toes of socks, then you can use them for other projects. I'm starting to dye the mini skeins. I have a couple of other colors that are drying right now. So the ones that I actually have ready are in some ways a little boring because they are black and gray. So there are the first few little mini skeins. These two are black and these two are the charcoal gray. You might not be able to tell much of a difference, but there is a difference. The black one will go with actually the self-striping colorway. That is the new colorway. And then the charcoal gray goes with a pavilion, which has charcoal gray, purple, blue, and green. Of course, I mean, you can mix and match and use them with whatever, but that's kind of intentionally what those are designed for. The black would also go with the one that is black and purple, the two stripe. So I'm going to start off with the mini skeins by doing colors that do correspond with the self-striping stock colors that I currently have. And then once I've got a good, inventory of those, then I may start doing like gradient kits or something like that with the mini skeins. So we'll see. But for right now, the colors are going to be ones that coordinate with the self-striping colors. So that is one thing that I'm doing. The next thing is the self-striping colorway, which I put that sock over on the other side of the room from the other segment. Let me go grab that real fast. Okay, here we go. So I showed this earlier. This is the new self-striping colorway that is currently available in my shop. So if you go to the Round Table Yarns website and click shop, you'll see this color. So it's already available. It is a 6 stripes, so black, blue, black, pink, black, purple. And I really liked the pink and blue and purple, and I decided I wanted to use those colors together, and then decided to throw in the black. I was just going to do it 4 stripes and have the black, pink, blue, and purple together. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to alternate with and put a lot of the black in here. And so when this was done, and especially after I started knitting it up, I thought this looks a lot like stained glass. So I started doing some research to see, what kinds of stained glass about King Arthur could there possibly be, so I can figure out a name for this. And I discovered that there is a building in Tintagel in the UK. Tintagel is supposedly the birthplace of King Arthur, or I guess where Arthur was conceived. And there, in the 1930s, I think early 1930s, maybe late 1920s, this guy built a building called the Halls of King Arthur, and it was for a group that has a really long name. I don't remember exactly the name. I will put it in the show notes. I will link to the website that talks about the hall. But basically the Order of the Knights of King Arthur of the Round Table, or something like that. Anyway, so apparently it's this gorgeous building, and it has a ton of stained glass. That was a series done by a stained glass artist, and all about the knights and King Arthur. And so there's a whole series called The Windows of the Knights, and each knight has a window and has a shield, and the symbolism that is involved in each knight is apparently explained by each window. So this colorway is called Windows of the Knights, so kind of in honor of that stained glass series. So I am actually, like I said in the what I'm knitting section, I'm up to the point where I'm ready to turn the heel, and not this one, but I have another mini skein of black that I dyed, so I can actually do a solid black heel, and then I'll do a black toe as well for this sample sock. So I have that all ready to go, and so when I have the sample done, this will also be a sample for using the mini skeins. So I really, really love this colorway. I think this is one of my favorites that I've done, so I'm super excited that it is available. So like I said, it's available online right now, or if you're going to the Yarn Crawl, I will have a trunk show at the Knitting Fairy, and I should have some available for that. I may need to dye some more, depending on if it sells out in the online store. I may need to dye some more before the trunk show. So the trunk show, I am furiously dying for that because of the whole air conditioner saga. I'm a little bit behind in my dyeing schedule, so I'm going to try my best to get as much done as I can. But I basically will have the entire front room of the Knitting Fairy. I will be set up for the entire 10 days of the Yarn Crawl. I personally will be there the first weekend. I don't know exactly which hours. Some of that's going to depend on making sure that I don't have to bring my son with me. So however many hours I can make sure either my husband or someone else is able to be with the 4-year-old. So I will be personally at the shop, definitely the first weekend, possibly sprinkled throughout the week, but all my stuff will be there the entire time. So if you're in the DFW area and you're planning on participating in the Yarn Crawl, make sure you go. So that's at the Knitting Fairy. So really, really working on that. The other thing that I'm working on is, depending on when you watch this episode, if you've watched it kind of right when it comes out, you're still in time to order the August monthly colorway. So basically what I'm doing is each month I'm having a new colorway that is exclusive for that month and will only be available during that month. So once that pre-order time is over, the colorway is retired. So this one is running August 1st through 7th, and most of the time it will be the 1st through the 7th of each month, unless there's some reason to vary that. So that way you'll be able to kind of count on that time schedule. But anyway, so right now today's the 5th, and so there's still 2 more days for the pre-orders. So through the end of the day on the 7th. And this is the color. There you go. This is the color for August. And quite appropriately with the shirt that I'm wearing, remember Monty Python, Holy Grail. This colorway is called We Want a Shrubbery. And then if you've seen the movie, there's this discordant chord, you know, that comes after that declaration. So We Want a Shrubbery is the name of this colorway, which you can only get through August 7th. So if you're watching this before August 7th, 2016, make sure you go to roundtableyarns.club and order this colorway on any base. I basically dye it to order. So as soon as you order it, it goes in my line for the next up in the dye pot. So I'm actually dyeing it some right now for an order. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out, roundtableyarns.club. And if you miss out on this color, then make sure to check back on September 1st to see the September colorway. So lots and lots of stuff going on over at Round Table Yarns, but mostly I'm concentrating on dyeing up those August orders and then also making sure I have lots of great stuff for the trunk show. And I think that's about it. Oh, the air conditioning saga. So the rest of this episode will be about this air conditioning saga, so if you don't want to hear it, then, you know, you don't have to listen to anymore. Okay, so on Monday, my son and I went to the grocery store Monday morning. We came home and put away the groceries. You know, we had a lot of groceries to put away, but I've put away the groceries and I'm like, man, it's really hot in here. I guess, you know, putting away the groceries was a really strenuous activity. So I went to check the thermostat and it was 78 degrees in the house. And I thought, okay, I know we do not keep the house at 78 degrees here in Texas, especially when it is over 100 degrees outside. We like it to be pretty cool inside. So I thought, oh no, it's happening. Every summer we have had problems with our air conditioner. And I thought maybe we'd get away with missing it this summer, but apparently no such luck. We have a home warranty, and I'm going to go ahead and name people. We have a home warranty through American Home Shield. And honestly, I don't know why we've kept the home warranty. I think part of it is because we've had air conditioning problems, but I really don't feel that it's a really great experience because it takes a lot of time, and I think that it doesn't always give us the best solutions. So what I mean by that, on Monday, so about 11 o'clock is when I reported that the air conditioning was not working and we needed someone to come out to look at it. I did get an email copy of, here is who is supposed to contact you to to meet your request, but I did not get a call from that company until Tuesday morning. In the meantime, the house, there's no air conditioning, so 100 degrees outside, it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer. 78 actually was good. I'll say the highest that the thermostat ever registered was 90. Inside the house, yeah, not fun. Anyway, so the temperature is going up and up and up. Didn't get a call until Tuesday. The person who's scheduling it said, when would be a good day for you to come out? As soon as possible. Any day, any time is good for me. And she couldn't get someone out until Wednesday afternoon. It's like, fine, if that's the earliest available, then that's what we'll do. So the guy came out, and he was very nice, and I did really like him, but he had his hands tied because of what the home warranty allows, basically. So it turns out that our compressor was dead. It had shorted. It needed to be replaced. So in order to go through the home warranty, which on the one hand, the home warranty pays for it. I pay a flat fee for the service visit, and then the home warranty would pay for the new compressor. that's good. But on the other hand, apparently this is how they have it set up. The air conditioning guy has to contact the home warranty to let them know what he found. They have to go through some type of approval process to make sure that it is okay to replace this part. Once they okay that, the home warranty orders the part and has the part sent to them. This is what I don't understand. They have the part sent to the home warranty place. The home warranty then repackages the part and sends it out to the air conditioner repair company, who then finally comes and replaces the part. He said that it would take at least a week for this process. A week! And in fact, this is Wednesday, he said probably it won't be until next Friday, so a week and 2 days before he could come and get the part and come replace it. I thought, oh my gosh, we cannot survive. I mean, this is miserable. We had bought some extra fans, but I mean, it was really, really miserable. And so I asked him, okay, so we have to replace the compressor. What if we didn't go through the home warranty? A, how much does it cost? And B, how long would it take? And he still said it would take a couple of days for the part to come in. And it was pretty expensive. But at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of willing to pay this extra just to get this done faster. And so we talked some more about it. And he said, honestly, the system was getting toward the end of its life and it would probably need to be replaced pretty soon. So if we were going to pay for it ourselves, he would recommend that we don't pay for the new compressor, don't sink that money into it, go ahead and get a new system. So we talked about that and he gave me an estimate for that and told me that the earliest he could come to do the new system was Tuesday. Remember, this is Wednesday. So nearly a week for the new system. So I thought, oh, I don't know what to do. So I told him, okay, go ahead and right now let's just process through the home warranty and order the new compressor. I'm gonna talk to my husband. We're gonna decide what to do. So I called my husband and we talked about things and we decided we wanted kind of a second opinion. So we called another air conditioner business, one that we had recommended to us, and who we'd actually called, I think 2 years ago, to come out to give us some feedback, and he was a really, really nice guy, so called him again. Okay, so this is Wednesday. It's probably close to 3 o'clock by the time I'm calling him, somewhere between 2 and 3. He told me that he could come out that day between 5 and 7. Remember, this is only a couple of hours before then. And you know what? He showed up at like 5:03. Oh my gosh. That was already, excellent sign. The fact that I could call him and he could show up later that day, and that he shows up at the beginning of the window that he gives us. Absolutely wonderful. So we talked about our needs for a new system, and he gave us a quote which was financially better than the other company, and he said he could get his crew in on Monday morning, first thing Monday morning. It was still a wait, but it was at least a day earlier than Tuesday, and the quote was better. Plus, we also liked the brand that he was quoting a little bit better. So we decided to go with that guy and cancel all the stuff with the home warranty. So, needless to say, we had a really big expense. So, we spent Wednesday night at my mom's house. And I came back Thursday morning to check on the cats, make sure everything was okay there. And as I'm doing that, I get a phone call. It's the guy that we've ordered the new system from. He said, would it be okay if we installed your new system today? Oh my gosh, would it be okay? It would be absolutely amazing if the new system could be installed today. And so 2 hours later, his crew was there and he actually showed up himself. And it took them a very long time, I think about 4 hours. But they did a really thorough, wonderful job. We have a new system. It is now, really comfortable in the house. And I feel much more confident kind of going forward with our air conditioner, which, by the way, we're totally dropping the home warranty. Not worth it. We're just gonna call this guy. So if you're in the Mansfield, South Grand Prairie, South Arlington area, his name is Ross. Heating and Air, so Ross, R-O-S-S, and I will link to that in the show notes. Incredibly nice guy, on time, fast, very affordable. Highly recommend him if you need anything for air conditioning or heating. So there's a little bit more to the story. He said, after seeing the whole system and replacing it, that after we fixed the compressor, that would not have solved the issue. Apparently, up in the attic, there were some issues with coils that needed to be replaced. I don't know all the parts of an air conditioner and how it works, but apparently that also needed to be replaced. And once we replaced the compressor, the system still wouldn't have worked, and we would have discovered that then there was another part that needed to be replaced. So had we moved forward with the home warranty thing, we would still be without air conditioning. Next week on Friday, we would have had the compressor replaced, found out that that didn't solve it, had to go through and order the next part, probably wait another week for that to come in, and hope that maybe that fixed things. The home warranty, this is why I'm really upset at the home warranty. Not only is it a time thing, apparently they would just keep patching the air conditioner until basically it was so old that they no longer sold parts for it. We would probably still have that air conditioning unit for the next 10 years, just trying, every summer probably having something break down and having it patched and replaced. So I'm so glad that we decided to drop that and to just move forward with a new system. So here's the final kind of nail in the coffin. So apparently there were some issues with the furnace as well. There were some cracks on one of the pipes. We have a gas furnace. Cracks in the pipes, not a good thing. The guy told us that most likely this winter when we turned on the furnace, there would be a fire in the attic. It would start a fire, and most likely it would burn the house down. And that actually is a little, that's actually a little emotional right now, thinking about that. So I'm actually very glad now that the air conditioner went out, and that we had made the decision to replace the unit, and that we found a really great person to replace it, and that he was able to also obviously fix that issue with the furnace so that this winter we can actually be safe in our house and not have a fire and possibly have the house burned down. So I guess having the air conditioning not work is a bit of a blessing in disguise. So really scary thing there. But apparently so far it's all worked out. We have a great new air conditioner. It's very nice and cool in the house. We have a really nifty thermostat that goes through Wi-Fi, and we can actually look at on our phone and make changes on our phone. So that's really cool. So I guess all's well that ends well, but some really uncomfortable and then really scary moments going in there with that story. So anyway, yeah, if you're having some problems with your air conditioner, make sure that you're getting the whole system checked out and everything to be sure that you're addressing the real issue and not just patching things and hoping that it'll limp along for another year. So yeah, scary story. And that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you watched the entire thing. And I will be back in 2 weeks. Bye, and happy knitting.